So I'm here with Sabine Parzer, the teacher of the holistic dance principles of teaching that we're hosting at Rhizome Springs this summer, August this year. Sabine, I thought it'd be helpful for people to hear a little bit more about the intention behind this intensive that you're offering. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, first of all, hi, Selena. It's really great to see you.
Hi.
And yeah, I'm psyched to offer this on your at your beautiful place on Rhizome Springs. Maybe I'll just share a little bit how we came up with this because I've been offering holistic dance teachers trainings for the last 15 years, since 2010. I created this format where over a course of 10 modules, I teach people in the different formats or in the different forms. And there has been sort of requests from you, but also from other people to kind of create a condensed version of it or a more, a shorter version of this that is easier to also teach in the US or in Canada. So that was one of the reasons why I created this. It's kind of the suckus of my work. I am a professional dancer and choreographer. I trained in many modern dance and contemporary dance forms, and I've been a performer and engaged sort of in that artistic element for a very long time. But I also have been working in a clinical setting and in a private practice as a body worker and as a dance therapist. And I think basically used the work of authentic movement, contact improvisation, contemporary dance improvisation, ecosomatics, and different somatic formats or different somatic methods to teach a whole lot of different people. So I like one of my main intentions of offering this is to also just share how helpful this work is for so many different people. If it's not just dancers and it's not just people who are already in the contact community or in the somatic community, but to everyday people, lay people, children even, or people who have different professions, who just everybody who wants to connect more with their bodies and just practice or getting more into that embodiment that is so needed on so many different levels. Don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's just so much to that we can gain, and everybody really can gain from this type of
yeah,
experience and training. What you're offering in specifics to the teaching, I think would be really,
yeah,
that's really the heart of what this offering is here. And there's been thankfully lots of us that have been in this work for a long time and now starting to think about like, how do I offer this? How do I actually teach this in a way that is digestible and supportive to people coming
yeah.
along? And you spoke a little bit about trauma informed. What does that
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. So for me, there's really a pedagogy behind teaching. So I've had the great fortune of studying dance at Columbia College in Chicago, and I've had some great teachers, but I've also really had the opportunity to kind of learn how to build up a class or how to build up something. And I think pedagogy is really helpful in passing on information that's hugely complex and sort of also like one of the things that often come up in improvisation or in teaching improvisation or contact improvisation is, where do we start? Yeah, so where do we start entering this form? Because you could basically start anywhere. Yeah. And so for me, the pedagogy is on multiple levels. It's A, who's here? Who are my participants? B, what is the setting? Like, what's the expectation? Or who's organizing this? How much time do I have? How much, like, are people coming voluntarily? Or are they being sent to come? And then what's my intention? So a lot of it always comes back to what is it that I actually want to offer? And that's sort of like above everything. Like it's not even related to the form, because it's like, okay, is my intention to pass on technique, or is my intention to create a safe ground for people, or is my intention to get people to play with each other or to be creative with each other? So that's kind of like the meta level on all of that. The trauma-informed piece of it, I find, I mean, first of all, maybe I have to share that, I'm an artist, and then at the end of my 20s, I started working in a rehabilitation center in Austria that was for patients who had severe accidents, but also many of them also had neurological diseases who then had accidents, and a lot of them also had psychiatric diagnosis and then had accidents. So I worked for 14 years in a setting that was heavily, basically dealing with trauma on all different levels, because trauma can be the physical level, but of course can also be the emotional level. It can also be just being close to trauma that can affect us. So those were, of course, sort of circumstantial trauma, and there's a whole other aspect of like developmental trauma. The principles of teaching is, it's not a trauma training, it's not a trauma therapy training, and I think it's important to also say that to everybody. I'm a holistic dance pedagogue, but I've had a lot of training in it, and I've had a lot of professional experience related to that. And so for me, the main thing is always emotional safety. It's sharing, the inclusion of emotional content. So what I've often experienced in the dance world is that we teach dance in a way that's so sort of exercise oriented or goal oriented or performance oriented that we do also in some ways cut off some of the emotional aspects of it. And one of the beautiful principles of authentic movement is listening and witnessing yourself, and but also developing an emotional language, like an emotional literacy. And that is one of the reasons why I also include it in the work.
That's really helpful to hear about. Excuse me. Um, some questions that have been coming up around this training is, do I have enough training to do the training?
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit about that? What kind of experience level do people need to have to do this training?
Yeah. It's an 8-day intensive training where we are focused on teaching and applying the work. So you need to come with a fundamental understanding of these forms. In the description, we said that you need 3 years of experience in contact improvisation, authentic movement, somatics, and/or improvisation. It doesn't mean that you have to have 3 years of experience in all of these forms. Yeah. Some of you will come with a stronger contact improvisation background. Some of you will maybe come more from the somatics background, and some of you maybe from more the dance therapeutic background, which also includes authentic movement. What is important is that you have done all of these forms at least once or twice before. You've had introductions to them. There's the container is not big enough to give you an introduction to authentic movement. I will talk about the pedagogy of how to introduce it, but that sort of presumes that you have had the experience of having done it before. And the same with contact improvisation. You need a certain sort of availability in your body. It's not about the acrobatics. It's not about, how strong or how old I am even, like, or how young I am. It's not about that. It's more about really understanding the principles of it, because that's also how I teach. I find the principles of dance, or the principles of contact improvisation, are the most useful to offer them to as many people as possible. Of course, I have my own understanding of what that means, and I will pass that on. So the sort of the main structure of those whole 8 days is that in the mornings, most of the time in the mornings, I will sort of guide you through what I perceive are my ways of teaching or my principles that I've learned. And then most of the time in the afternoon, or at least one half of the day, we will spend time where you apply yourself, where you have labs, where you do sample teachings, where you get feedback, and where we also share and exchange with each other around those different topics. So my end of the whole format is, on the one hand, offering you my teachings and my approach. Secondly, also what I've developed in those 15 years of teaching the teachers trainings is really sort of a meta level of teaching. So what does it mean to create a warm up or a main exercise or a cool down? What structures are helpful for a 3-hour workshop or a weekend workshop? Levels of acknowledging and getting in contact with our participants, how to deal with difficult participants. All of those are listed also in the description. So really, really practical stuff that we will, on the one hand, sort of elaborate together, and I will also draw on your experience and, work with your questions also, but then me also sharing that. And then the third part is really you actively teaching, exploring, sharing with each other, labbing, and us giving feedback to each other, because that's the best way we can learn.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know for myself and my own teaching journey, sometimes I've had a concept or something I really want to teach and, just sort of break it down, warm up, what is sort of a progressive way to lead up to the topics I want to offer. How do I make sure I've got everybody along the ride with me? Like just all these different pieces, and to be doing it in sort of this isolation sometimes can feel pretty overwhelming. So I'm really looking forward to an opportunity to just like talk about it
Yeah.
together and get your feedback and ideas. I think it's going to be really, really valuable, this offering.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when you teach improvisation, you have to improvise as a teacher. And that
Yeah.
is really the high art. But it's really also different if you are prepared. And if you have a bag of experiences, or if you have thought of something ahead of time, or you've tried it out, and then it's always easier to just let that plan go and go with what's coming up. For me, there's also, I come back to the intention. Like there's a difference between having a plan and having a larger intention. And then I can always, it's also so much also about listening and kind of picking up the participants where they are and kind of going with the flow of the group. And that's, that takes skill, and that takes practice, and that takes feedback. I think a
Yeah.
lot of it also has to do with how embodied we are as teachers. So like my main tool in teaching is my own body. If I don't know where to go next, I'll ask myself. And so like my nervous state, my state of presence, where's my attention, where's my somatic awareness right now. And I will talk about that, and we will practice that as a way of navigating the teachings. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about Rhizome, the venue, for people who don't know?
Yeah, well, Rhizome is on Salt Spring Island, which is in BC in Canada, the west coast of Canada. We're a ferry ride away from Vancouver or Victoria, if you're familiar with that. We're off grid, so we operate on solar power and well water, and we're surrounded by nature here. We have an amazing vista of the water, and we look out at Vancouver Island here. So it's a really beautiful opportunity to be here, immersed in nature. You don't have the same kind of distractions that you do being bombarded in the city. So in a learning environment and an immersive environment, it's really quite special, I think, and really supportive. Most of us are camping here. We do have options for, a little bit more comfortable accommodations. We have glamping tents and cabins that you can rent, but it's pretty rustic. And although I guess people describe it more as sort of bougie rustic, I've heard. We have hot showers and we have an amazing cook here that cooks organic, beautiful, from the land food. She's
Mm,
been with us for a number of years.
mm.
And so, we're very well supported in our experience here. We've got a 2,000 square foot dance floor in a giant geodesic dome, and it overlooks the water. So nestled in a pretty special location.
It's very special. I've had the great pleasure of being there the last 2 years, and it's really, the dome is special. The atmosphere that you provide, the care that you provide is really special. The food is special, the view is special. So it's really a beautiful place to also get into sort of the depth of what it is that we're doing and teaching.
It
Yeah.
really is. We've got a number of things happening this summer as well. So, if people are interested in coming and spending a month or however long, there's a number of different offerings, including this one, to
Mm,
participate in. So,
yeah. I
yeah.
think maybe the last thing I just want to share is like if you're not sure that you fit in, yeah, in terms of the requirements, just send us an email and we'll check in with you. There's also an application. It's not super long or intense, but we just kind of want to hear a little bit about your background. Again, you don't have to have the full portfolio of what we're offering here, but we just kind of need to kind of know that you're interested or invested into offering your teaching. So also if you don't define yourself as a teacher yet, but maybe you have offered some, I don't know, like you've done some warm-ups at the gym, or you've passed on the forms or passed on what you enjoyed in a workshop to some friends. Or maybe also if you're a body worker and you kind of feel like, oh, I want to expand my vocabulary, I keep on going to contact festivals, and I kind of want to find a way to combine that or to interlace those forms, then that's the perfect place also to be. But just in case, like if you're not sure, just send us an email. We'll get in touch with you and most likely it'll fit. That's
I
my
think for me, like part of my real interest and excitement about this training is that I know that there's a number of people in our community that have great ideas, very creative,
mm,
uh, are incredible dancers, and are it's like you've been describing all along, it's a process to learn how to unpack and deliver an idea into something that's actually coherent and
yeah.
followable by other people.
Yeah, and part of it is inherent in sort of this multitude of choices that we have as dancers. And so much of it is kind of narrowing it down. Actually, the pedagogy is about narrowing it down so people can enter the different forms and then to widen them up again. But that's kind of, I feel like that's one of the jobs for me as a teacher is like, where do we start and where do we bring the focus in first, and then where do we shift the focus? I think one last thing I also want to mention is I'm an ISMETA certified master somatic movement educator. So at the end of the 8 days, you will also get a listing of all the hours that you have participated in. And you can use those hours to sort of add them up if you are on an independent track training or an independent track application to become a somatic movement educator at ISMETA. You can use those hours, and altogether I think we have almost 100 hours that you will get out of those 8 days, just to
It's
let you
pretty significant, yeah. And
know.
it's another great training to have under your belt, especially if this is, a serious direction for you in your career,
Yeah,
in your life.
yeah,
Well, thanks so much, Sabine. It's been great hearing a bit more about this
mm,
from you, and I hope this is going to be helpful for people trying to make a decision or understand more about what this training is.
yeah. I'm so looking forward to it.
Me too.
Bye bye.
Bye.